How you guys doing today? It's Anthony Gangi, host of Tier Talk, and I had a great question sent my way. There's an officer that follows the show who says that he's getting ready to transfer after 10 years of working at a full minimum security unit. So in some cases that could be considered a level 1, but to generalize that, it's one that's least restrictive, and he's going to be transferring to a highly restrictive facility. So again, in some cases it could be a level 5, level 6, classified as a max, but generalized, it's a highly restrictive area. So what advice would you give someone who's committed most of their time to a full min facility and is now moving their way to a highly restrictive facility? And it's a bit of a transition, and I do have some advice for this. So when we get back from our sponsors, we're going to talk about this transfer. Why not? As always, guys, this show is for you, you brave men and women who work behind the wall. Please, if you haven't, subscribe, interact, engage, and also hit that bell. That bell's going to notify you every time I post up a video. I stand by for our sponsors.
I wanted to attend a university that had an intelligence program. I wanted to look at problems different. I wanted to increase my critical thinking abilities. AMU offered those avenues to expand. Obtaining your degree as an adult, you're actually paying yourself and investing in yourself. You can't put a dollar on it, it's priceless. It's something that can never be taken away from you.
American Military University. Learn from the leader.
Being a corrections officer takes its toll on even the strongest individuals. The constant need to perform at the highest level, putting your life at risk in a hostile environment, and the mental scarring of traumatic experiences. 31% of corrections officers show symptoms of PTSD, and 66% of people with PTSD also suffer with a substance abuse problem. The Transformations First Responders program is specially designed to help veterans and officers heal from the grips of addiction and PTSD in a comfortable, supportive, and serene setting. You are not alone. If you have questions about the services we offer, give us a call at 866-762-8454 to get more information on this affordable and life-changing program.
Thank you guys for listening to our sponsors. So when an officer makes a transition from a least restrictive area, so again, a full min, if you will, and they move to a highly restrictive area, so a max area, there is a bit of a transition that the officer has to worry about themselves, especially if they spend a lot of time, like in this case, 10 years, in that one least restrictive area. This is a lot different of a move than someone going from a highly restrictive area to a least restrictive area. Because when you're working at the highly restrictive area, your game should be up. You should be ready. So when you go to that least restrictive area, most likely will be the inmates that will try to tell you, hey, yo, you're being too tight here. Hey, what's going on, man? It's too strict. Doesn't matter. That's the tone you're starting to set. But again, you have that mentality of working in a max area that you're taking with you into a least restrictive area. And you know, again, you can adjust, but it's a great starting point to adjust from. Imagine the other perspective now, working in a full min area and bringing that mentality up. That's a different mentality. And that's a mentality that could put yourself, the facility, other inmates, staff at risk. So again, the first thing we have to talk about is the environment. When you work in a least restrictive environment, the environment's a little bit different. Remember, the inmates at that point are minimal supervision, you know, and their focus is different. Where's their focus? Most of their focus should be getting ready to prepare for release, getting ready to enter that community, you know. So their focus is pretty much left what goes on in this facility, and now they're worried about, hey, how do I transition to the outside? And that makes a lot of sense because they've done a bulk of their time, you know, and they're ready to be released. They're ready to go back out to that community. So the mindset of the inmate in a full min area should be, for the most part, a little bit different than the mindset of an inmate who's coming from a highly restrictive area. Because when you look at max inmates, either they're problematic, but for the most part, they're either new or they have a lot of time. So their focus is totally different. Their focus is on, how do I make my time work for me? You know, and how can I make my time easier? And that's where it starts to get into play of manipulating staff. You know, anything to make their time easier. So the mindset of the inmate is also different. But again, you also have the environment. One environment in comparison may be a little bit more lax than the other. So I think it's good for officers at that point, before they go into that transition, before they take that step into that max facility or that max area of the facility, that they go through some form of retraining. And again, it's not to knock what they're doing, because I'm sure they're great officers. It's just to kind of remind them of where they're going to be at. Because again, complacency is a deadly enemy. Sneaks up on us. We don't know it's there. And if you need to make sure that some of the practices that you may not be aware of, that you've been committing yourself to in a full min area, may carry out into a highly restrictive area, and that may not be such a good thing. So basically, we're looking at habits that we need to lift. So I think it would be great to see that the officer that's going through a transition here, if you can go through some form of retraining real quick, just to make sure that, you know, you get rid of some habits that may have worked in the least restrictive area that can totally put you at risk in a highly restrictive area. And again, most of it also deals with the mindset of the inmate. The mindset of the inmate is different. The mindset of an inmate in a highly restrictive area is a lot different than the mindset of an inmate in a least restrictive area. And once you get that in your head, then maybe that when you start entering those facilities that are highly restrictive, after working so many years in a least restrictive area, you'll start to change some of your habits on your own. So even if the department doesn't offer you some form of retraining, this is a good attempt to kind of wake you up and realize that the mentality of the inmate is different, and that mentality will affect the environment that you work in. So as always, the show is Tier Talk. I think it was a great question. Feel free to comment, give your advice below. Do you feel that the officers should go through some type of retraining? I mean, that's the question. Love to get your opinion on that. And as always, guys, please, if you haven't, my name is Anthony Gangi. Again, the show is Tier Talk. Subscribe to the channel, interact, engage, and hit that bell. That bell is going to notify you every time I post up a video. As always, stay safe.